Hello, this is Sheldon St. Clair from St. Clair Knowledge Management Productions. I'm bringing you a new video about some folder structures within the project lifecycle. So this is how you can organize your documents and your deliverables um, within a project lifecycle and the type of suggested folder names and subfolder names and categories that's available to you. Okay, so this slide is just basically just saying that that the information here is free for you to use, but it is copyrighted, so you cannot photocopy, sell, record, or yeah, basically use it for commercial purposes without my prior consent. I've got my details there, and please visit the website because this video is not only on YouTube, but it can be accessed via the website as well, where there's other information and material for you to go through and consider. Okay, then. So let's get started. Right. Okay. I've done a prior video to this one on about project folders and the templates using a different life cycle. So this is basically kind of like another template. So as a project manager, the life cycles that you use could be tied to a particular method, say for instance Prince2 or PMI, or it could be in-house. In terms of kind of like what you're using within your organization, or it could be kind of something that you as a project manager or project management consultant is asked to introduce into the organization. So, but basically, the life cycle is really just a way of organizing your work to support the goals and the needs of your client, of your sponsor. So this particular life cycle consists of six phases: initiation, planning, requirements and design, build, transition into the live environment, and close. Okay, so this is looking at project deliverables. So you can consider, building or basing your project around these folders and these suggested headings. You can replace them, you can add to them, you can delete them, but it's basically a case of, well, this is a life cycle that you can consider. Okay, so if you go onto the next slide. So if we kind of like look at initiation as a folder heading, and what kind of like lies underneath that. So let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, so initiation is in my mind, it's really about, okay, we've decided that we're going to do something, and we just need to kind of develop some more information about it and to get it approved and for it to be turned into a project where you've got resources assigned to it, you've got a time scale, and you have got funding, which is the most important thing. So you start off by producing a business case, which is 1.1.3. Then moving on to, project brief, which is 1.1.3, excuse me. Then moving on to the business case, which is 1.1.2, which is where you get the funding. And then you move on to the PID, the project initiation document. So those are kind of like the three main categories in initiation. And I would suggest that you create a folder for each of those categories, because certainly within say the business, when you're doing the business case and when you're working on the PID, you are going to have various iterations and various versions of that document, and it will go through different approval sign-offs as well. And you're going to have a draft copy, um, a final copy, a second revised copy, etc. So if you can have a folder for just business cases, it'll be easier for you to locate it and store it, locate it, and share it with other people. Right, planning. which is the next. Now, in some kind of project life cycles, planning is part of, say, initiation, or it could kind of be part of requirements and design. I've kind of like stripped it out, but as I say, whichever kind of like document you or whichever life cycle you're using, it's just recognition that there is a planning bit or some planning work that you need to do. Within kind of planning, in my mind, there are four kind of main areas. Um, 1.2.1, that's basically your contracts and your licenses that you've kind of set up or you have to set up with your suppliers. Resource management now, whether the resourcing is done by yourself, whether it's done by HR, whether the people you're going to use are internal or external, I would suggest that you have a separate folder to hold that information. Um, 1.2.3, which is budgets and cost plans. So this information will feed into your business case and also your PID. And in terms of kind of like the budget, you may have to go to different departments to actually get the money for your composite, your aggregate budget, and then you need to do a cost plan as well. The reason why we've got this as a separate folder is that in some instances you may want to restrict who can view that information because it will be very sensitive. And then finally, you've got your project schedule. So that's your Gantt chart, whether you're using MSP or Excel or Word or however you're going to identify your tasks, assign people to it, and have an expectation as to the start and end date. Okay, so it's basically you need a planning function, and these are kind of like the folders that you can consider. Right, requirements and design. So this is basically kind of like where you're sitting down with your stakeholders, your sponsors, and other people, and finding out, well, what is required in terms of features, in terms of functionality. You know, if kind of like, for instance, you're building, well, as an analogy, if you're building a car, is it two doors? Is it four doors? The hatchback, are the windows kind of electronic or wind up? What sort of braking system you're having? If you're building an IT system, well, how many users um, will be using the system at any one time? There may well be licensing issues there. What sort of volume of data? What is it that they're going to do? What sort of reports do you require? If so, yeah, so therefore that's really what kind of requirements and design is about. And then design is basically okay, based on your requirements. These are the options that we're considering, and you can select something to then build. Okay, so in terms of sort of folders that you're going to have is sort of okay. The first two are fairly kind of obvious in terms of well, one folder for your requirements, information and documents, and then kind of like design itself in terms of architecture. You'll have kind of like designs and diagrams and other things as well. Now, depending on how many people or the type of people that you're going to engage to do the work, you may need a procurement strategy. And what we mean by that is, well, are you kind of like going out to tender? Um, if you are, you're going to consider 2, 3, 4, 5 different bids. Do you need to kind of go to the European Union to get approval if the budget or if the resource budget is over a certain amount of money? Yeah. Okay, okay, cost estimates. You may want to hold this kind of within your the requirements of design folder, and then kind of like move the information across ultimately to your finance folder that you identified earlier. Okay, information about the tenders, and then contract information as well. So that's kind of like a starter. Within kind of like requirements, which is 1.3.1, you may break that down into subfolders. So it really depends on um, the size and the complexity of your project. Okay, and yeah, just kind of it's worth saying that if you haven't got any kind of tendering, you're not going out to tender, then you may not need a folder for that. Okay, build. So build is where kind of like the actual work takes place. Whether it's you're building a house and people come on site, or you're building a system, so therefore you need to you need to write code to do what you want, or you're manufacturing, or you're making something. Okay, yeah. From this phase, from this folder, you're going to get the solution. Good. Okay. So, okay, these are, I suppose, kind of like these folders are aimed at if kind of you're building, I don't know, a data center, or building a house, or you're building something. Therefore, that's what these some subfolders suggest. If you're building an IT system, then you may not need, you may replace 1.4.1 to 1.4.3 with construct. Yeah, you're always going to need something you're always going to need the testing folder. But it's really a case of, okay, within build, you're making something and you're testing it. Slide. Okay, transition. Okay, this is something that kind of like isn't really thought about a lot by people, or it's done in a very haphazard way. This is where you're kind of you've completed the work, you've tested it, and now you want to kind of hand it over to business as usual, or the support team, or someone to take ownership of it. You're basically saying, we've done our bit, over to you. And a lot of the time, you've done, you're working in isolation, you've completed something, and then you scurry around to find someone to actually accept it, and it can take time. So have a folder called transition, and these are the sort of things that or sort of subfolders you may kind of have in there. Kind of like in terms of your plans, operational readiness. So if kind of like you're building, say, an IT system, you've engaged with the IT team, the operations team. Um, are they, so in terms of operational readiness, well, um, when would they actually implement your new system? You may kind of say, okay, I want to implement it in, say, 2 weeks' time, and they may well say, well, we haven't got the capacity to do that. It'll be implemented in 4 weeks' time. So therefore, that's kind of the negotiation that needs to take place. The customer now, kind of, are they kind of like ready to accept it? Who's actually going to accept it in terms of departments? Who's going to use it? So you're gathering information about that. 1.5.4, so that's a testing bit where the users kind of carry out their final kind of checks, just to ensure that everything is above board, and the solution is really um, what they want, and they can use it. It's not cumbersome. And then kind of any sort of training and warranties, and then the configuration file. So this is basically your kind of operational manual that you'll be kind of given to the business as usual team. So if there are any kind of problems, or if kind of like people need information about how to set up, how to install, how to deploy, it's all contained within this file, within this folder. Okay, yeah. So in terms of the configuration file, I've just kind of broken it down into kind of like more information. Okay, as you can see there, processes, agreements, contracts and warranties, operational aspect, plans and documents, and the structure as well. And then kind of finally close. So you've built something, it's been handed over, so you want to close the project down. Um, and then disband the team and then move on to the next project, because this one would have been deemed successful. So therefore, kind of like within the close, you may have like these sort of subfolders, forward commitments. Are there kind of things that need to be kind of like done, going forward? Your project closure report. So this is kind of like where you're effectively um, producing a summary of the project, where you're looking at lessons learned, you're looking at kind of what went well, what didn't go well, um, and this is really, on the approval of this document within this folder, the project is deemed completed. Any sort of financial information. So therefore, okay, you're given a budget. How much did you spend? Did you overspend? Did you underspend? If you kind of overspent the original budget, have you got change request information um, or change control information that agreed a new budget for you? Okay, so what about kind of contracts? Are all the contracts in place and signed off? Who's actually going to support the system? Is it the same supplier that helped you build it, or someone else? 1.6.5, the project files. So this is all your risk information, all your issues, meeting minutes, um, actions logs, um, kind of resource plans, um, project plans. So it's basically kind of all the material that you accumulated during the life of this project will be contained there. And finally, you'll have a folder called PIR, stands for Project Implementation Review. So probably about, typically about 6, or even 9 months after the project has gone in, you stage a meeting um, with all the various stakeholders, sponsor, the users, the customers, perhaps suppliers, and you have a meeting about the project itself, and you're assessing whether 6 months or a period of time after it's gone in, the project is still delivering what was required, and the benefits that were identified in the business case is realistic and being produced. Okay, so that's kind of basically your closed folder and the subfolders within it. Oh, yeah. So that's just kind of more information about kind of the type of things that you would have in your project file. Okay, there's about eight things altogether. Good. Okay, so I hope so that's kind of like basically the end of this. So that's just kind of a nice little slide there just to show you that we've covered all the various areas. Good. Okay, and this is the end. Hope you kind of found this kind of this video useful. All the documents that we had kind of that were mentioned in this video package, this video message, are available. Um, so just visit our website, and you can download and use them. Okay. So thank you very much for listening. This is Sheldon St. Clair signing off.